want to remind ourselves of what it's all about, page 101. So thank you again. Appreciate that. Now we have with us Sister Victoria Navarro, and Sister Merari Navarro is her householder, and she's speaking to us from the reasoning book, May Images Be Used Simply as Aids in Worship of the True God. And her setting is she is talking to her teacher, and this is Sister Navarro's first talk.
Hello, Miss Navarro. Since I have a little bit of time today before my mom picks me up, we could continue our conversation about the true God Jehovah.
Sure, and I've been meaning to ask you a question. I know that Jehovah doesn't approve of us using any images to worship other gods, but would it be okay if we use images to worship him?
Well, that's an interesting question, and many people do feel the same way that you do. But in order to answer the question, we must consider how Jehovah feels about the use of images for worshiping him. Why don't we look up a scripture in Isaiah 40, verse 18, and I can read that too. Isaiah 40, verse 18. And to whom can you people liken God? And what likeness can you put alongside him? Now, let me ask you, has anyone seen God?
Well, no.
And then, reasoning with the scripture, how can we make an image of his likeness if we've never seen him?
Well, we can't.
That's right. Now, the Bible takes it a little bit further in the book of Acts. So that's Acts 17, verse 29. And why don't you read that?
Sure.
Here in Acts 17, verse 29.
Seeing therefore that we are the prodigy of God, we ought not to imagine that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, like something sculptured by the art and contrivance of man.
Thank you, Mr. Navarro. Well, based on the scripture, how are we not to view or imagine God?
Well, it mentioned that we should not imagine him like gold, silver, stone, or something sculptured by man.
That's right. Now, isn't that what an image is? Even though we are not worshiping the image itself, using an image to help us in worshiping Jehovah is not the way Jehovah wants us to worship him. Well, this last scripture that I'm thinking of will show us how Jehovah wants us to worship him. Now, how about we look at John 4, 23 and 24. And I can read that. That's John 4, 23 and 24. It says, Nevertheless, the hour is coming, and it is now when the true worshippers will worship the Father with spirit and truth, for indeed the Father is looking for such like ones to worship him. God is a spirit, and those worshiping him must worship with spirit and truth. Now, that scripture tells us that true worshipers will worship Jehovah in spirit and truth only. If we need to use an image to help us worship him, then we would not be worshiping God in spirit, because we would be relying on what we see to worship him. And we want to worship God by faith and spirit, not by the things that we can see.
I understand now, Victoria. That makes sense. Since we can't see Jehovah, we can't make an image of him. And even more important, that is not how Jehovah wants us to worship him. Thank you for helping me understand that.
You're right, and you're welcome. I think I hear my mom aside. I can see you tomorrow, and I'll bring my Bible again if you have any more questions.
Sure, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, and welcome to the giving the talk side of the school, because you've been a householder.